Hey class, today I'm going to show you how to design a pumpkin in Tinkercad. This will take all of the tools you learned about in the 7 tutorials that you did and put them into practice. I think we need a little more practice before we move on to our 3D printed bookmark. So open a new project in Tinkercad, and then you are going to use this cube here to look at it in this exact view. So make sure it says work plane going this way, and you see it exactly as I'm viewing it. And then we're going to add an egg. So you're going to go here and choose characters, and most of the way down you'll see an egg. So then we're going to click and drag it about to the center, but we can adjust the position later if it's not exactly right. Don't click off, keep it selected right here. And these view handles give you lots of tips. So if you hover over these rounded arrows, these will give you a protractor so that you can rotate this. Remember, the rotate tool was tricky for some of you to use. So this is the rotate direction we want. Remember, we're designing in 3D, so we have 1, 2, and 3 dimensions that we can rotate this in. And you want this one. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and then I'm going to click and move it down, and you'll notice it snaps in increments of 45 degrees. So you want to make sure it says -90 degrees right here, and then you can release, and now your egg has tipped over on its side. And we're going to reset the view. So something I didn't notice many of you do was view your objects in those tutorials in all the different angles you can view them, because that's going to give you a lot of clues as to, oh, will this 3D print or not? So now I like the keyboard shortcut of holding the control key down and then clicking on my mouse, holding my mouse down as I move it into place. So now you want to look at it kind of head on, see where work plane is. You don't want it to be totally from the top, and you don't want it to be totally flat. You want to get a perspective view of it. So something a little bit like that is exactly what you want. And then you can release. Don't click off again. I notice a lot of you doing fast clicking everywhere, and then you no longer are selecting the object you need selected, and then it's hard for you to get back to that point. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to duplicate this egg once, and then we're going to move it to a new location. And Tinkercad has something called Smart Duplicate. And once it's moved to the new location, every time we duplicate that new egg in the new location, it duplicates it with the same moves that we applied to it. And you'll see that after duplicating it 6 times after that, we'll have a pumpkin. But you got to follow these steps and follow them exactly. So with the egg selected, we're going to duplicate it. On a Chromebook, you're going to hold down the Shift key. You're going to hold down the Control key, and then you're going to press the letter D. You might see a little flash, but it duplicates the egg right on top of the old one. So chances are you cannot see the egg that we're talking about. We need to rotate this duplicated one, but you can see that I only see 2, this one and this one, of the 3 rotational axes that I need. So if I hold the Control key down and then I rotate just a little bit, I'll see the 3rd one that I need. And if I hold Shift down and then I click on it, it snaps in 45-degree increments, and then I can let go. And now you can see that there are 2 eggs. All right. I'm going to move it back into the right view because that's what I need it to do. And you can see as long as I don't click off the egg, it stays selected. And notice in the bottom right hand corner it says Snap Grid and 1 millimeter increments. If I zoom in, you'll notice that these squares right here, those are all 1 millimeter increments. And so I want to move this to the left, the new duplicated one, 10 millimeters, and I want to use the up arrow to move it forward 5 millimeters. And that's going to give me the offset that I need. So I'll move it now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to the left, and then I'll move it up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to zoom back out so you can see what that looks like. Notice I did not click off, so it's still selected, and I've got this blue line going around. It's that new egg that I've selected. That's super, super important, because now if I just hold the Shift key down and then I press duplicate, it'll keep adding 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It'll keep adding eggs in that slightly offset pattern, and now you can see that I've got the beginnings of a pumpkin. So you got to get one egg down, duplicate it, rotate it and move it a little bit, and then duplicate it 6 more times in order to make this pumpkin shape. So now we're getting close to everything. You're going to press Control A, which is going to select everything. And then you'll see it almost looks like it groups them. And then you can click here on Group, or you'll notice there's a keyboard shortcut of Control G. So you can use either one, and then it groups all of those eggs as one object. And just for fun, if I click off and then I click on, now if I move it around, all the eggs move together. If you don't group it and you try to move it, each egg will move one at a time. If that happens, don't forget to use the undo button or the keyboard shortcut of Control Z to move everything back into place. So we're going to adjust our view plane a little bit. I'm going to press Control A to select everything. If I accidentally click off and nothing's selected, just press Control A to select everything. I'm going to show you that my pumpkin is hovering above the surface. And this is really important when we start 3D printing, because this would fail as a 3D print. So with everything selected, the keyboard shortcut of D, I'll put you back in that view, of D will drop it to the surface. So watch what happens. I press D and then it falls to the surface. And now it's making contact. Okay, now we're ready to move to the next step. So now that you've grouped it, you can resize it. You can make it narrower, you can make it wider, you can do all kinds of things. When you release, if you don't like it, just do the keyboard shortcut of Control Z to go back. Also, if you hold Shift key down and then you resize it, it resizes it in proportion. So it keeps the same width, height, and length dimensions, but and moves them all together. So find the shape the way you like it, okay? And then we are going to add the stem in the center. So for this, we'll go back to the basic shapes, and there's this paraboloid shape right here. So we're going to drag it out onto the workspace right here, and then we're going to hold down the Shift key so we can go in increments of 45, makes it much easier. And then we're going to grab this top one because we want to turn it upside down to make its stem. And then we're going to release, and now we have it upside down. Okay, I'm not going to resize it now because I want to put it on top of the pumpkin. So a lot of you notice that if you just move it sideways, it doesn't go up. But if you take your mouse and try to go up, it actually just moves it forward, but it doesn't move it up in vertical space. So you want to make sure you grab this cone here. This cone says, oh, we can lift it up, and it makes more sense if I show you from this view. So if I grab the cone, I can move it up or down, and you'll see I get that measurement here. And I can still, and then I release, and then I can move it over kind of where I want it in the pumpkin. And you have to keep changing your view because you won't notice that this is not it sort of towards the center. We'll use the align tool to get it really towards the center, but we just have to get it kind of close here. That's okay. And I'll probably want to bury it down into the pumpkin a little bit. And I'm going to hold Shift and then resize it a little bit because it's not exactly the size that I want. And then I'll move it around, and that kind of looks like the pumpkin that we're talking about. Now we're going to use the align tool, and I know the align tool was tricky for you as well. So you're going to click on the pumpkin, and that selects the pumpkin, and we haven't grouped it with the stem because that would force us to have the same color, and we don't want that. So we're going to keep it ungrouped, but now you're going to hold Shift key and you're going to click on the stem too, and that means everything is selected. And then you'll click here on the align tool. Now, you might notice that there are two lines that cross under the center of the pumpkin. There's this one, and then there's this one. So that's how the align tool works. If we do the two crossed ones here, it'll put it in the center. So watch what happens when I click on it. It moves it a little bit, and then I click on this one, it'll move it a little bit more. And now if I hover over the top, it's aligned perfectly with the center of this pumpkin. And there we go. So now we're ready to add a little bit of color. It's pretty easy. I'm going to click off. I'm going to click on the pumpkin part, and then I'll click here on solid and just choose an orange color. And then you can click on the stem, click here on solid, and choose some kind of a brown color. And now you have a pumpkin. And instead of saying, oh, I'm done, can I 3D print something? Make 10 more pumpkins. That's how you learn how to use this tool. You can select everything and resize this one if you want. Don't forget to hold the shift key down to keep your proportions. Then you can move it off to the side, and on the same thing, go back and make another pumpkin. Make a bunch of pumpkins. That's all for today.